So yeah, well, I wanted to say first of all, in a season of blockbusters, this being August, I've just sat through 3 months of movies where everyone can fly, and so I
Yeah.
really, I really enjoyed watching your movie because it felt like a long time I had um, watched something that was actually about the human experience. And
Right.
I found it really interesting. I mean, in 90 minutes, I felt like it covered a lot of territory, and moments that were sweet, that were bleak, all mixed together. And so I guess my first question would be, what was the genesis of this movie?
Um, well, I went to Cuba for the first time around 10 years ago, and I I guess that when I first arrived there, I had quite a simple image of the place. I had quite a superficial understanding of what it was like, and it wasn't until I learned Spanish that I started to get a little more of a grip of the reality and day to day life for people in Havana.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hearing all of these stories about people leaving, and the idea of making a raft and throwing yourself into the ocean to cross a 90-mile distance just seemed absolutely terrifying to me. And hearing all of these stories about people who had actually passed away, and or who had been in the middle of the ocean and had been dragged back by currents, and just the kind of the absolute desperation that you must feel in order to undertake something like that. And I was just hearing all of these different accounts of separation of families, and kind of almost like national consciousness that was to do with immigration, and this kind of and the and how kind of insular it is in Cuba in a way, because of the isolation that's been created through the political situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so and the longer that I was there, the more I started kind of understanding and kind of seeing the complexities that existed there, and in a way becoming more confused. But that confusion led me to wanna find out more, and kind of I saw more of the contradictions that existed there, and it was really compelling to me as a place to investigate that, and to kind of show something that I hadn't really seen anywhere before, something that was becoming more familiar to me.
Was this? Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
that was, I guess. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, no, no. I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you.
I didn't hear you what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you. I was just going to build on what you just said, and I guess I wanted to say, did you always have the idea that this was going to be a feature that you wanted to make, turn into a story, or is this just something that just happened, in the course of your adventures, and then being a filmmaker, you decided at one point that you wanted to make this into a movie?
Right. So initially I went out there for almost a year, and then I went to film school, and every summer I was coming back. In film school 3 years, and every summer I was coming back to Havana, and I actually traveled around the whole of Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I had to do a short film for my thesis at FDU, and I wanted to make a story in Cuba, and I wanted to do a story about young people in that situation of leaving, like teenagers actually making the choice to leave. And so it started as a short film, but then that 10-page script turned into 110 pages once I went there and started talking to people and casting and location scouting. It became a much bigger story.
Right. And then these actors were all, or none of them were professional actors, right? Can you talk about the process of finding the actors for this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the actors weren't professional. basically I initially started looking at professional actors, like kids who'd been on TV and kids who'd gone through kind of theatre school. But the acting was very big and was very kind of theatrical. And so I wanted something much more subtle and much more delicate in the performances. So I decided that we should do an open casting, and so we hit the streets of Havana and basically gave out flyers all over the city to every young person that we met, and people spoke to their brothers and sisters and cousins and friends, and we had these huge casting auditions, and people would come in, and there would be lines of people down the entire street, and I would interview everybody and kind of have people do little improvisations and just see who had a kind of natural flair for it. And with the main characters, with Dariel, he was at his school, and the casting assistant and I met him and gave him a casting flyer. And he came in the next day. He came to 3 more auditions, and then he got the role. But as soon as I met him, I really knew initially, it was just like an instinct. I knew that he was right for the part.
Yeah.
And then with Anna Lynn, the character that plays Leela, she was on the beach with her family, and I had actually been practicing Taekwondo in Cuba myself for that year that I was living there. So I really wanted to have a Taekwondo artist, because that was part of the character, and I wanted the girl to be very kind of independent and strong-minded. And when Anna Lynn came in, she actually majored in Taekwondo in school, so that was pretty
fortuitous.
weird coincidence, you know. So she was also very striking and had this very natural presence, and was just when she did her improvisation, she was very good, and and it was very clear that she was right for the role. And then with Javier, we went out looking for somebody who could look like Anna Lynn's brother. So we took basically some casting assistants went to all of the high schools and took photographs of all of the girls all of the boys, that looked like they could be the brother of Leela.
Wow.
And I went through the photos, and then I picked out Javier, and he came in, and he was just very natural and really talented.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, they were all very natural, and but also held up really well on camera. I was really impressed with all of them. I was surprised when I found out that none of them had started as actors. And I wanted to ask you about directing, since directing is so spontaneous and there's so many hundreds and hundreds of elements constantly at play every day. I was wondering if you could share an example of some crazy moment while filming in Cuba, something that you couldn't have planned for, that happened while you're filming, where I'm sure there aren't unions cracking down on you and things like that.
Yeah. So something that's in the movie.
Or just
something that's not in the movie.
Or it doesn't necessarily have to be in the movie. Just like a story that sort of stands out for you about, like, oh man, I don't know that this would have necessarily happened in New Orleans if I was filming there.
Right. Well, there is a story that really made an impression on me. It's basically when we were on the beach and we were shooting a scene with the raft. But we were right on the shore, and it was a very small crew. It was kind of after the main shoot, and it was just pickups. We were doing close-ups, and I looked up from the camera, and I saw that we were surrounded by around 20 soldiers dressed in green, with guns pointing at us, with AKs pointing at us, and I just put my hands up in the air. Everybody was just, very slow moving. It was very scary. And they thought, someone had tipped them off that we were actually leaving on the raft that was crossed. So we were actually using that raft to leave the island. And they had come because they thought we were trying to escape. and our producers were amazing and spoke to them and explained, no, it's a prop, and this is a movie, and we're not actually trying to go anywhere. And so,
oh my goodness,
thanks to some smart producers,
yeah.
kind of, they clarified the situation and they left us alone. But it was a pretty nerve-wracking moment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm recalling something now from watching the movie that I wondered is, since this happens as often as it does. I mean, I was sort of surprised when the characters were going and picking up some of the elements, the inner tubes, or picking up a motor from someone. I mean, is that something that that these people would try to keep to themselves? I mean, is that something where is it common to be turned in?
People would definitely keep it to themselves. It would definitely. I mean, I've heard about wives who, wake up in the morning and their husband isn't there anymore.
Wow.
Or, it's like, it's something, some people tell people, but then they might try and stop them because it's really dangerous, and people can and do pass away making that journey. So obviously their loved ones probably wouldn't want them to go.
Right.
But then there are other times when people tell other people, and I think more often than not, people don't tell people. I know that when I was casting for the film, I had a couple of people come in to the audition, and they confided in me and told me that they were making their own boat, and that they wouldn't be here in a couple of months. So they wouldn't be able to participate in the film. And there was one guy who came in, and it was really kind of heartbreaking in a way, because it made me realize the actual, the reality of what we were doing. That it's very present, and it's very much happening, and that this guy, he told me that he was going to be leaving on a raft, and he was making his own raft, and he then started telling us about, you should change your oars, and you should have the tires should be bigger, and so we adjusted our boat according to what he told us, because he really knew what he was doing, because he'd researched it, because he was actually leaving.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you got a lot of respect.
There was another incident. Say that again, sorry?
Oh, I'm just saying, it sounds like you got a lot of respect down there from a lot of the locals, and it's really that's really cool. People interested in.
There was this other story. There was this other guy, a young musician who I really wanted to work with, who is a young reggaeton musician. He's 19 years old. His name was Elvis Manuel, and he had been invited to go to Miami to perform, and he didn't get the visa, or he didn't get the permit to leave the country. And so he and his group, his producers and his fellow musicians, went to leave on a raft. And I heard about it from one of his producers afterwards, because I was reconnecting with him to talk about the music. And he said, and Elvis Manuel actually passed away in the water because he wasn't a really strong swimmer. So, it was very present and very, very, very much something that we were aware of, that was really happening. So that was kind of why I really felt an obligation to make it as authentic as possible, and feel as real, and really respect that. The kind of the reality of it, the authenticity of it for people watching it whose families might have gone through something like this, or who they themselves had gone through. I mean, at our first screening in Tribeca, one of the people in the audience had actually arrived in the States on a raft himself.
Oh my, wow.
And it was really emotional, to kind of speak to somebody who had been through it, and then and to get his kind of approval on the movie was, you don't get a kind of higher. That for me was that was like the maximum kind of critic to hear from, because he'd actually been there and done it, and so.
Yeah.
for him to say that it felt real was really enough for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that would lead me to my last question is what do you hope that people take away after watching this movie? And not imposing an opinion, of course, but I mean, what do you hope that they walk away with that they didn't have walking in?
I think that the great thing about going to see any movie is that everybody comes in with their own perspective, and you go through the experience of empathizing and relating to these people on the screen, hopefully, and then you walk out with however that affects, from the lenses that you've been looking through. So in a way, everybody kind of has their different experience according to how they look at the world, which I think that's the most amazing thing about films. And in a way, as a filmmaker, I'm not trying, the last thing that I want to do is write for somebody what to think or what to feel about these people's lives. But I can only hope that they empathize and feel for their situation and understand their relationships and can kind of feel what they're going through.
Right. Well, I can say that you certainly pulled that off because, like I said when we started out, I mean, it felt rewarding to be transported somewhere and learn about a place that I really know nothing about, and see representation of stories that are happening again that I really don't know much about, and I really got swept up in it. So I really enjoyed your movie quite a bit.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks
Well,
so much.
Yeah, and thanks so much for talking with me. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.